Well, you've seen it from Bobby's perspective and some of the other carnivore channels that Casey has went back to veganism again. The problem with Casey is the fact that he needs a therapist. Something's wrong in Casey's head to where he feels like his whole life has to be a comedy. Um, he was vegan and he was having complications with that, and then he goes carnivore, and he's doing fine on that for a while, even meeting some other carnivore YouTubers, and then now he's back to vegan again. And here the excuses come and the reasons why and everything else. Something's wrong in his head. And a lot of the other people join his channel because of the comical events that he puts on and how he flip flops back and forth constantly. He can't figure out whether or not he wants to water fast and refeed the wrong way, whether or not he wants to really put in the work to engage his health from a uh, YouTuber that people look up to and look to for information. Sometimes maybe you should decipher and divide the comical side with the serious side, knowing that people watch you for some of your content that has to do with food and how you engage your life to figure out your issues. A lot of the stuff that he says and does doesn't even make sense. Sometimes it looks like a clown putting on a show. Maybe that's the whole point behind the content. I don't know. But when you put your body in harm's way in the process of trying to put out content and grow your channel, and you make yourself sick in the process of doing it because of lack of research, long periods of fasting with water and juicing and all this other stuff, and then adding juicing in while you're doing carnivore, you're asking for a recipe for disaster. And that's what he was doing all the time. It was never about being strictly carnivore. There were times where he was adding in juicing, and there were times where he's refeeding improperly and stuff. Long water fasts, refed by raw eggs and stuff like that. I mean, none of this stuff even makes any sense. And depending on who you follow and who you listen to, like Megan Ramos, for instance, if you follow Megan Ramos, you might see that Megan Ramos doesn't actually recommend feeding with carnivorous foods. She would rather see people refeed with fibrous foods because it's supposed to slow the impact on how you refeed properly. Um, Other people would say start out with light bone broths and like an egg drop style soup or something like that for a few days, get your electrolytes and minerals and stuff back up, and start getting in that trace carbs and stuff from eggs to actually start retaining some of that water and those electrolytes and slowly come back into it. But instead, Casey decides to be a clown about it and do the exact opposite and act like he doesn't even know what's going on. And now all of a sudden we see this switch from veganism to carnivore, then back to veganism again, and then pointing the finger and blaming on everything else, when what he needs to do is he needs to blame himself. He needs to look at himself and say, you know what, you've been a clown for this comical channel for so long, now you're putting your body in harm's way. Instead of doing the research and figuring out how to do things the right way, maybe I've taken it too far with the comical side of things. Maybe I need to stop blaming all the other diets and stuff and actually look at myself and see if maybe therapy is what I need, because I've convinced myself that I need to keep switching back and forth to all these diets. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you do make yourself really sick and you're going to end up in the hospital for long periods of time. The issue that I have with juicing while on these types of long fasts and stuff like that is juicing takes all of the glucose and stuff that's out of the product and turns it into a basically available form like you haven't even had. No fiber. It extracts all the fiber and stuff out of it. You might get the vitamins and some of the minerals, but you also get a lot of the glucose. So now you have insulin spikes and blood sugar responses to things that you may not even see if you ate the product by itself. So the way Casey was going about doing things and refeeding properly and switching back and forth between diets was a recipe for disaster anyway. And I knew back in the beginning when he started switching over and talking about some of the things that he was doing that he was going to fail on this anyhow. And I already had it set in my mind, and I even brought it up in several conversations. I bet you months from now what he'll do is he'll turn around and go back to a vegan diet and blame everything on carnivore. Blame everything on having too much protein and stuff like that. I already knew this stuff would happen. I've actually talked about it in several conversations where it's all about the comical side of things, but when you put your body in play, and in harm's way in the process of doing that, it's not cool. And you need to start looking at therapy for that now, because it's switching back and forth between the diets and stuff. Find something and stick with it. If you can't be on a carnivorous diet, then don't be on a carnivorous diet. If you can't be on a vegan diet, don't be on a vegan diet. Find something that works for you instead of putting out this shit content for YouTube so other people will want to see you fail over and over again, because that's what it's about. It's about comedy and failing and then trying to figure out an answer for something because other people might be going through the same thing. But instead, what I think Casey should be doing is figuring out what works for him and then driving to achieve that goal. Not this bouncing around crap all over the place and these constant water fasts and refeeding with juicing and raw this and raw that. Just make a plan, figure it out, stick with the plan, see if it works for you. But that's not what he's doing. And I knew this would happen from the very beginning. I called it out a long time ago. So now here we are, him talking about going back to veganism because carnivore is failing him. Anyhow,